I want everybody on this channel to stop struggling with the rear hook. It's something that people bring up time and time again when I do privates with them, whether it be on Zoom or in person. They go, it doesn't matter how many times I work it, I'm really scared to let that back hook go when I spar. So in terms of people's favorite punches, the rear hook seems like it's way down on the list, but it should be one of the most powerful shots because hooks in general are very powerful, and your back one should be more powerful than your front when you think about body mechanics. It's the same as a jab to the lead hook and the cross to the right hook. The cross should be more powerful than the jab. The left hook should be weaker than the right one. But very often for the left hook, we will preload and then unwind. And you feel very strong with that, but the back one is much weaker for many people in terms of that fight mentality. I can throw and not get tagged. So first thing I want you to understand about this punch is it is a little bit more compromised defensively than other shots. Why is that? Well, first of all, when we look at our guard and we decide we want to come around to the side of somebody's head, we have to open ourselves up for a little bit longer. This is fairly direct, uppercut fairly direct. This one is a little bit more open, and as soon as I come out here, there's this middle area where I'm compromised. So uppercuts and straight punches seem very, very scary. And if somebody happens to see the right hook come, let's say you guys are in your fighting stance, orthodox, and you throw the right hook, and I happen to do that first, yeah, you're gonna eat the shot. So knowing that should help you to understand that we want to make sure this hook is fairly sharp. It's fairly crisp, getting to the target. We don't want big and wide, and we don't want elongated, because the more we reach out, the longer it takes to get there and the more time we are exposed. So try to keep everything very, very snug. Keep your hand tight to your head as your shoulders rotate, and then at the last second, your hand can leave your head. But even with that in mind, there's still many things that we can correct and change to make this punch one of your favorites, or at least something that you're feeling confident to throw in sparring a little bit more. First of all, let's understand length and range. If we are normally throwing shots like this, and we're thinking about setting up that right hook, we want to understand that if somebody is in their fighting stance, if I'm in my fighting stance like this, look at this big gap over here with my head. It's perfect for the rear hook. But to do that, if we're throwing our punches like this, we've got to make sure that we're coming fairly long with this, not really short and in tight, because naturally that's going to catch the glove. So play around with different distances on that arm so you're not always just throwing it here and happening to catch this glove. If you're always waiting for the person to drop their hand to land, it's going to be very, very rare for you to connect to somebody's head. So you play around, sometimes short, sometimes longer, where you're trying to wrap around behind the ear. The next thing to keep in mind with what we already talked about with counters coming towards us and us being a little bit more open is we don't want to keep our head in this position. If I'm right here and I always throw my hook like this and the other guy's always countering with straight punches, yeah, it's probably not going to go very well for me. What can I do about that? Well, I can get my head off the center line slightly as I throw my right hook. I just drop my head to the side. Now anything that is coming right here is going to slip by, and then I can land that hook as they're extended out. Now very often the setup on the right hook is a problem as well. Before we get to that, let's talk quickly about the actual technique of this. Where do some people struggle? We talked about playing around with your range, but when I hold pads for people very often, or I see them throw, they forget about a couple major elements. First off, elbow as high as your fist. Obviously, for anybody who knows anything, that's a given. If we start coming down here, you're going to be exceptionally weak. The other thing which I see all the time, even in people who are fairly advanced, is they forget about this back hip and they forget about this foot. If this foot is connected heel to the ground and I try to take this hip and move it forward, I can only get to parallel. But if I disconnect my heel from the ground, now I can start rotating and get this right hip in the lead. And when I do that, I get that right hip in the lead, I can start generating a lot more power, a lot more force, and that rotation is gonna help me lift the shoulder, which will help protect me more. Now, when we're thinking about setups, one of the easiest things to do is go, okay, where is this guy gonna be compromised with the right hook in mind as the next punch? If I come with something right up the middle, chances are they're gonna close off that guard. They're gonna get preoccupied there. So I can come 1 to 2. But a lot of times for me, I find that they're gonna start getting a counter off if I just go 1 to 2. So I like to distract them with multiple shots off that lead arm. It could be double jab, it could be jab to hook. But remember, if you go jab to hook, and then you come to another hook, there's that extra amount of time where you're open, as opposed to here where you can keep things very closed off. So my preference being 1, 2, up to the right hook, and that left hand returns directly to the head to really limit the exposure of counter shots. The last couple things, which are very basic but will help you build confidence in this right hook, is being very aware of what your chin is doing and what your opposite hand is doing. If I go like this, doesn't matter if I did everything else I listed today, but I come here, you're gonna have trouble. You're gonna get countered way too much. Even if you hit them and you start to pull back and they counter you, even worse, you're here and they catch you sort of as your arm's exposed. So we want to remember, chin down, hand up really high. I can hide behind that double jab, chin down, other hand up. This shoulder naturally is sitting very high. If you piece all that together, now you start minimizing the exposure that you have when you just go something like this. Too wide, chin too high, other hand down low. That is a recipe for disaster. More likely than not, if you guys have been training for more than 6 months, you're not doing all those things wrong, but it's very easy to forget about one of them. You forget about one little element, shoulder too low. I get these two really high, but my jaw is too high. Or I remember everything here, but my other hand drops. If you can piece all three together, shoulder high, chin low, other hand high. Now, as long as I rotated my hip, I did a really nice setup, I got my head off the center line, all of that together will equal confidence in your rear hook, which will just make you want to throw it time and time again after you go to the gym next week and start having success with it, which I hope you do after this episode. If you enjoyed the video, guys, please give it a like. If you have not already, join the channel, get subscribed, train hard. I'll see you back here soon for another video.